Gojo Satoru is one of the most hyped up characters when it comes to his strength, and this hype comes primarily from the fact that his limitless curse technique makes him invincible against most physical attacks. So much so that he's often put up against significantly stronger opponents in versus battles and is able to come out triumphant because of his overpowered curse technique. This leads many to wonder what exactly can get past limitless, and today, me and Six will be taking a look at Genjutsu, the illusionary abilities from Naruto, in order to see if that could potentially get the job done against the likes of Gojo and his limitless curse technique. And to kick this discussion off, Six, I kind of wanted to just ask you to give a general description of what Genjutsu is and the basics of how it works, so we can kind of work off of that when we're discussing how exactly Gojo interacts with Genjutsu, or if Genjutsu even would be able to work past the limitless.
So Genjutsu, as far as I know, there's 3 different ways you can activate it. Now, one of the ways, I don't know what it is. I'm just be real. I don't know what it is. Kurenai and Kabuto, they both activated Genjutsu in part 1. That's not stated to be auditory. We don't see it do anything visual, but they both activate Genjutsu. Kabuto's puts you to sleep. Kurenai's wraps you in an imaginary tree or something like that, and then she can like come out of the imaginary tree. We have no idea if it's visual or auditory how it activates, but they activate one of those ways. And then visual Genjutsu, it's like Sharingan Genjutsu mostly is how people activate those. The only known counters to it in the Naruto verse are the Sharingan, to be able to see through it, or if you have like someone with you that can make your chakra flow naturally, you can counter it. But what they do is they put their chakra into your brain through your eye sockets, and they manipulate your chakra flow, or how it flows to your brain, to make you see different things, because all of that stuff comes from your brain. Everything you see gets processed by your brain. And then auditory Genjutsu does the same thing, but just through your ears. So you hear a specific sound, and the sound, or the chakra travels with the sound into the person's ears, manipulates their brain. Jiraiya's paralyzes, we know that, and you start to see like frogs and stuff that have you trapped in a box. And Kabuto's like wraps you up in something. It like can turn visual, but they don't activate visually, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's just like a gist of what's going down. Basically, it's like if it does get past the limitless, Gojo's probably gonna be immobilized.
Yeah, and the reason for that, for all those who are wondering, is Gojo just doesn't show a resistance to any sort of visual or even auditory based illusions. And that's not really a Gojo specific thing. It's just due to the nature of JJK not really presenting those types of attacks or those types of curse techniques or even abilities in the series. The only times we really get to see something like that, something that even remotely resembles an illusion, is actually with Hanami, something Six reminded me of before we recorded this video, in which Hanami throws down his like field of flowers. Gojo gets caught off guard, his killing intent is lessened, and then Hanami is able to get away because of that. Now, while that isn't an exact one-to-one of what Genjutsu is, this, along with Gojo having no real feats to his benefit, does kind of imply that at best, he just doesn't have any sort of natural resistances to it, and like we can't assume that he does without any feats. And at worst, his best showings in regards to sort of illusionary techniques or abilities that are supposed to redirect your senses or attention is actually like in the negative, right? He actually has feats that show almost objectively that he has no resistance to them, or at least is susceptible to them in some capacity. And I think it's pretty easy to say that Hanami's illusionary feats are significantly worse than someone like Sasuke's, Madara's, and especially a character like Itachi's, who is known as like this Genjutsu god in the Naruto verse. So when it comes to a Genjutsu landing, when it comes to a Genjutsu actually taking effect, the name of the game here is not, does it affect Gojo if it lands? The question is, does it land in the first place? And in the case of 2 out of the 3 forms of Genjutsu that Six mentioned, the answer that I think is most backed up by the story is probably no. In regards to the ambiguous, like miscellaneous form of Genjutsu and visual type, it seems to be the case that Gojo probably wouldn't be affected, simply because it's stated numerous times and like shown numerous times in the story that in the case of like Sharingan Genjutsu specifically, the user is inserting chakra into the opponent's brain and then manipulating that chakra to make them see things that aren't really there. You can think of your basic Sharingan Genjutsu, you can think of Tsukiyomi, you can think of Mangekyo Sharingan Genjutsu when referencing that. But the general sentiment is that chakra is inserted through the eyes and then you are immediately taken over based on that. It's hard to say because we obviously have never seen what sort of like chakra delivered in the form of like visual prowess looks like going up against Gojo. But the implication would be that the sort of ambient chakra being inserted would be detected as like this dangerous or hostile force, and the Limitless would stop it even if Gojo himself isn't identifying it as a problem.
Yeah. So like one reason I especially think it would stop it is because when Gojo is talking to Shoko and Geto about how he's discerning techniques and how he's making it automatic now, he mentions that he can do it via a couple different methods, like cursed energy. He can do it based off of their speed, the mass of whatever's coming at him. But speed is the real important one here, because Genjutsu, obviously it has a set speed that it can travel from one person's eye to another. In one of Itachi's novels, they do make a comparison between the speed of Genjutsu and the speed of lightning. So if you wanted to say like, well, Gojo's Infinity would detect a lightning speed attack coming at him and probably stop it right there, I don't think that that's too far-fetched. And in fact, I think that that's likely. I think that if Infinity can react to lightning speed things, then it's probably going to stop the chakra from reaching Gojo's eyes. That's another discussion. If you I don't know if you do think Infinity has its own basic like reaction time, or if it's like always there discerning things. I sort of lean toward it just always being there, and it discerns if it's gonna let something through rather than stopping it. But yeah, you can give your take on that.
Yeah, so in the case that like you have the interpretation, it's like always an open door and it closes when things are attacking. It doesn't really look good for Gojo, because that would simply mean characters or things that are way faster. Like for example, Genjutsu coming from characters like Itachi, who are able to use it on other characters that are extremely fast, like Sasuke. Obviously characters who scale significantly higher than Gojo in speed. So if you have, you know, if you kind of had the interpretation, oh, it's like it's an always open door that closes on occasion, I guess is the analogy I would use, then Gojo, the Genjutsu, might just bypass it. But I am of the opinion, like you, Six, that the Limitless is more like a closed door that occasionally opens for other things that Gojo either intentionally or the Limitless itself determines is safe to pass. I don't really think that there is any set speed, at least in a linear sense, that would be able to get past the Limitless just due to like being really fast. So I think visual Genjutsu and even the miscellaneous type of Genjutsu, because we don't know the delivery system, probably wouldn't work. Now, as you guys may have noticed, we're being very specific in what type of Genjutsu we're saying doesn't work on Gojo, limiting it to only 2 out of the 3 choices. And that's because auditory-based abilities, auditory-based techniques seem to be effective against Gojo. And we actually see that being the case against Jogo. And I think it's chapter 14 where he sends like a bunch of his sort of like bug Shikigami type of things, and they scream in Gojo's ear. Gojo is obviously able to hear them before that triggers the explosion. And that in and of itself kind of lets us know that like jujutsu that are being used that are based on sound can still penetrate the Limitless. Like Gojo doesn't automatically filter that out as dangerous. Gojo is not suddenly deaf just because that curse technique is using sound as part of its ability. And when applying that across verses, the sort of equivalent is auditory based Genjutsu, which can be very potent, and we have seen be used against characters numerous times effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Gojo even comments on how Jogo's using sonic attacks as well as explosive attacks, and he says, you know, not that bad. So it does give you the impression, he hears it. It's just blatantly. It gives you the impression that those types of attacks will work on him. And if that is the case, there are only 2 different audio genjutsus that we see in the series. If that is the case, Jiraiya's is probably like gonna end Gojo for good. Like there might be like a sliver of a chance if you talk about Kabuto's and Taiyuya's, but Jiraiya's Genjutsu, I mean, it's you see a few frogs, and it looks like they're holding you in place in a glass box, but nothing's really happening to you. But outside, Jiraiya is stabbing you in the chest or something like that.
Yeah.
So that one's probably gonna work. The Taiyuya one, now it's potent, don't get me wrong, because it took two like EMS level genjutsus or bare minimum MS level genjutsus to break the other out of it. Like for Kabuto to break, no, I'm sorry, for Itachi to break Sasuke's and for Sasuke's to break Itachi's. They had to do it to each other. But like, it's not as potent as Jiraiya's. And I mean, like, but with the way Kabuto attacks, I mean, it probably would. This isn't a, Kabuto versus Gojo video or anything like that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if they were to use it, they could probably beat him.
Yeah, and the thing is it's like even though these, I mean, in Pain's case, right? I don't think he really resists the Genjutsu so much as Jiraiya doesn't catch them all in it, right? In Yu's case, it can be broken. I think Shikamaru does it, not even using chakra, like he just injures himself to sort of break the Genjutsu and break the illusion. But like you said, Six, in Kabuto's case, probably using it with more chakra control and efficiency, it is able to only be broken by the likes of like two high-level Sharingan users. Gojo does not have the benefit of the doubt of being a Genjutsu master like Itachi, and this would probably be his first initiation into like high level illusions. These sorts of genjutsu work on characters who are well aware that these abilities exist in the verse, and it is still able to take effect on them. So I can only imagine how susceptible someone like Gojo would be if one minute he's hearing, just some toad singing, and then the next minute he's just like in a different reality, unable to move his real body.
Yeah, I can see like if Kishimoto and Gege did like a collab manga. Imagine that world. They did like a collab manga. Maybe Gojo's 6 eyes could see through it, but in verse, there's really nothing to lead you to believe that. Like Gojo can see through curse techniques and whatnot, but there's nothing to lead you to believe that he could just negate an illusion. And it's not even like the illusion, like it can become visual, but it activates auditory. So it's not even like the 6 eyes really could do anything in that regard.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, he's gonna be in a different reality while Jiraiya's in a normal reality, just beating him up or whatever. Now, one genjutsu visual genjutsu that I know would work on Gojo is the infinite Tsukuyomi, and that's because regardless of not having chakra, even if someone was commenting that earlier, regardless of not having chakra, regardless of the limitless barrier, whatever, the infinite Tsukuyomi penetrates all. It does it through light, and we know that light hits Gojo through his infinity. Otherwise, you'd never be able to see him. So if infinite Tsukuyomi gets activated by Madara or whatever, Gojo's going under, and that's one day. I mean, there's absolutely no way I could ever see Gojo breaking that one. He's gonna get caught up in it, and then they're going to do the divine tree or whatever to turn him into a white Zetsu.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, the thing is too, like, even if you wanted to get really pedantic and being like, well, you really wanted to try to argue in Gojo's case, another example that kind of shows, I mean, obviously light can get past, we can see Gojo can see characters, right? That's an obvious case, but Miguel actually says in volume 0 that Gojo's spatial manipulation works on an atomic level, right? Obviously, light is made of photons. Photons are subatomic. So if the infinite Tsukuyomi is traversing and like actually getting into him through light, I mean, even if you say Gojo is intentionally putting up the limitless, he's on guard for it. If his control of space is on an atomic level, and then you have this genjutsu that is being like dispersed into your brain on a level that you can't even manipulate space, it'd be like the limitless isn't there. It's something that just doesn't really factor into a genjutsu like this. The answer that you guys may all be looking for is some genjutsu do work, some genjutsu don't work. Thank you, Six, for joining me. If you have anything you want to plug or, any final word before we close out this video, you can go ahead whenever.
No, I mean, you can check out my channel as well. We've got a couple collabs over there. At least we will probably be by time this goes live. But yeah, other than that, I'm good. Appreciate you having me.
Yep. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe to me and Six. Check out this playlist with a bunch of other JJK content, and I'll see you in the next one.